Fablehaven, Chapter 9. The triangular wooden board rested on Kendra's lap. She studied the pegs, planning her next jump. Beside her, Lena gently tilted back and forth in the rocker, watching the moonrise. From the porch, only a few fairies could be seen gliding around the garden. Fireflies twinkled among them in the silver moonlight. "Not many fairies out tonight," Kendra said. "Maybe sometime before the fairies return in force in our garden," Lena said. "Can't you explain everything to them?" Lena chuckled. "They would listen to your grandfather before they would ever listen to me." "Weren't you sort of one of them?" "That is the problem. Watch." Lena closed her eyes and began to sing softly. Her high, trilling voice gave life to a wistful melody. Several fairies darted over from the garden, hovering around her in a loose semicircle, interrupting the warbling tune with fervent chirping. Lena quit singing and said something in an unintelligible language. The fairies chirped back. Lena made a final remark, and the fairies flew away. "What were they saying?" Kendra asked. "They told me I should be ashamed to sing a naiadic tune," Lena replied. "They detest reminders that I was once a nymph, especially if those reminders imply that I am at peace with my decision." They acted pretty upset. "Much of their time is spent mocking mortals. Any time one of us crosses over to mortality, and makes the others wonder if they might be what they might be missing, especially if we appear content. They ridicule me mercilessly." "You don't let it get to you?" "Not really. They do not know how to needle me. They tease me about growing old, my hair, my wrinkles. They ask how I will enjoy being buried in a box." Lena frowned, gazing thoughtfully into the night. "I felt my age today, when you called for help." "What do you mean?" Kendra jumped a peg on the triangular wood board. "I tried to rush your aid, but ended up sprawled on the kitchen floor. Your grandfather reached your side before I did, and he's no athlete." "It wasn't your fault. In my youth, I would have been there in a flash. I used to be handy in an emergency. Now I come hobbling to the rescue." "You still get around great." Kendra was running out of moves. She had already stranded a peg. Lena shook her head. I would not last a minute on a trapeze or a tightrope. Once I played on them with facile agility. The curse of mortality. Facile agility? The curse of mortality. You spend the first portion of your life growing stronger, more capable, and then, through no fault of your own, your body begins to fail. You regress. Strong limbs become feeble, keen senses grow dull, hardy constitutions deteriorate, beauty withers, organs quit. You remember yourself in your prime and wonder where that person went. As your wisdom and experience are peaking, your traitorous body becomes a prison. Kendra had no moves left in her perforated board. 3 pegs remained. "I never thought of it that way." Lena took the board from Kendra and began setting up the pegs. In their youth, mortals behaved more like nymphs. Adults seemed impossibly distant, let alone an infeasible event of old age. But ponderously, inevitably, it overtakes you. I find it frustrating, humbling, infuriating experience. When we talked before, you said you would not change your decision, Kendra reminded her. "True, given the opportunity, I would choose Patton every time. And now that I have experienced mortality, I do not imagine I could be content with my former life. But the pleasures of mortality, the thrill of living, comes with a price. Pain, illness, the decline of age, the loss of loved ones, those things I could do without." The pegs were set up. Lena began jumping them. "I am impressed by how glibly most mortals confront the deliberation of the body. debilitation of the body. Patton, your grandfather, many others, they just accept it. I have always feared aging. The inevitability of it haunts me. Ever since I abandoned the pond, the prospect of death has been a menacing shadow in the back of my mind. She jumped the final peg, leaving only one. Kendra had seen her do it before, but had not yet succeeded in copying her moves. Lena sighed softly. Because of my nature, I may have to endure old age for decades longer than a regular human beings. The humiliating finale to the mortal condition. At least you were a peg-jumping genius, Kendra said. Lena smiled. The solace of my winter years. You could still paint and cook and do all sorts of things. I do not mean to complain. These are not problems to share with young minds. It's okay. You aren't scaring me. You're right. I can't really picture being grown up. Part of me wonders if high school will ever really happen. Sometimes I think I may die young. The door to the house opened, and Grandpa head poked out. Kendra, I need to have some words with you and Seth. Okay, Grandpa. Come to the study. Lena stood, motioning for Kendra to hurry along. Kendra entered the house and followed Grandpa into the study. Seth was already seated in one of the oversized chairs, drumming his fingers on the armrest. Kendra claimed the other one while Grandpa settled behind the desk. The day after tomorrow is June 21st, Grandpa said. Do either of you know the significance of that date? Kendra and Seth shared a glance. Your birthday? Seth attempted. The summer solstice, Grandpa said. The longest day of the year. The night before is a holiday of riotous abandon for the whimsical creatures of Fablehaven. 4 nights a year. The boundaries that define where different entities can venture dissolves. These nights of revelry are essential to maintaining the segregation and normally prevails here. On Midsummer Eves, the only limits to where any creature can roam and work mischief are the walls of this house. Unless invited, they cannot enter. Midsummer Eve is tomorrow night, Seth said. I did not want to leave you time to fret over it. As long as you obey my instructions, the night will pass without incident. It will be loud, but you will be safe. What other days do they run wild? Kendra asked. The winter solstice and the 2 equinoxes. Midsummer Eves tends to be the rowdiest of them all. Can we watch out the windows? Seth asked eagerly. No, Grandpa said. Nor would you enjoy what you saw. On the festival nights, nightmares take shape and prowl the yard. Ancient entities of supreme evil patrol the darkness in search of prey. You will be in bed at sundown. You will wear earplugs, and you will not rise until the sunrise depletes the horror of the night. Should we sleep in your room? Kendra asked. The attic playroom is the safest place in the house. Extra protections have been placed on it as a sanctuary for children. Even if, by some misfortune, unsavory creatures enter the house, your room would remain secure. Has anything ever gotten into the house? Kendra asked. Nothing unwanted has breached the homestead walls, Grandpa said. Still, we can never be too careful. Tomorrow, you will help prepare some defenses to afford us an extra layer of protection. Because of the recent uproar with the fairies, I fear this could be a particularly chaotic summer's eve. Has anyone ever died here? Seth asked. On the property, I mean. We should save that topic for another time, Grandpa said, standing up. That one guy changed into a dandelion seed, Kendra said. Nobody else? Grandpa regarded them soberly for a moment. As you are learning, these preserves are hazardous places. Accidents have occurred in the past. Those accidents generally happen to people who venture where they do not belong, or tamper with matters beyond their understanding. If you adhere to my rules, you should have nothing to worry about. The sun had not yet risen far above the horizon as Seth and Dale walked along the rutted lane that ran away from the barn. Seth had never particularly noticed the weedy cart track. The lane began on the far side of the barn and led into the woods. After meandering for some time beneath the trees, the track continued across the expansive meadow. Overhead, only a few wispy clouds interrupted the bright blue sky. Dale walked briskly, forcing Seth to hustle in order to keep up. Seth was already getting sweaty. The warm day promised to be hot by noon. Seth kept watch for interesting creatures. He spotted birds, squirrels, and rabbits in the meadow, but he saw nothing supernatural. "Where are all the magical animals?" Seth asked. "This is the calm before the storm," Dale said. "I expect most of them are resting up for tonight." "What sort of monsters will be out tonight?" "Stand warned that you might try to pry information out of me. Best not get too curious about those kinds of things." "Not telling me is what makes me curious." "It's for your own good," Dale said. "Part of the idea is that telling you might make you scared. The other part is that telling you might make you even more curious." "If you tell me, I promise I'll stop being curious." Dale shook his head. "What makes you think you can keep that promise?" "I can't possibly get more curious than I already am. Not knowing anything is the hardest." "Well, fact of the matter is, I can't give a very satisfactory answer to your question. Have you seen strange things, frightening things? Have I seen strange things, frightening things in my time here? You bet. Not just on festival nights. Have I stolen a peek out the window on the festival nights? A time or two, sure. But I learned to quit looking. People aren't meant to have things like that in their minds. It makes it hard to sleep. I don't look anymore. Neither does Lena. Neither does your grandfather either. Neither does your grandmother. We're all adults." "What did you see?" "How about we change the subject?" "You're killing me. I have to know." Dale stopped to face him. "Seth, you only think you want to know. It seems harmless to know. Walking under a clear blue sky on a fine morning with a friend. But what about tonight? Alone, in your room, in the dark, when the night outside is full of unnatural sounds. You might regret me putting a face on what the wailing outside of the window." Seth swallowed. He looked up at Dale, wide-eyed. "What kind of face?" "Let's leave it at that. To this day, when I'm out and about after dark, I am sorry I looked. When you're a few years older, a day will come when your grandfather will give you an opportunity to look out the window on the festival night. If you start feeling inquisitive, postpone your curiosity until that moment. If it were me, if I could go back, I'd skip looking altogether." "Easy for you to say. You looked." Not easy to say. I paid a heavy price for it. Many sleepless nights." "What can be so bad? I can imagine some scary things." "I thought the same thing. I failed to appreciate that imagining and seeing are two very different things." "If you already looked, why not look again?" "I don't want to see anything else. I'd rather just guess at the rest." Dale started walking again. "I still want to know," Seth said. "Smart people learn from their mistakes, but the real sharp ones learn from the mistakes of others. Don't pout. You're about to see something impressive, and it won't give you nightmares." "What?" "See where that road goes over the rise?" "Yeah." "The surprise is on the far side." "You're sure?" "Positive." "It better not be another fairy," Seth said. "What's the matter with fairies?" "I already seen about 1 billion of them, and also they turned me into a walrus." "It's not a fairy." "It's not like a waterfall or something?" Seth asked suspiciously. "No, you'll like it." "Good, because you're getting my hopes up. Is that dangerous? Is it dangerous?" "It could be, but we should be safe." "Let's hurry." Seth dashed up the rise. He glanced back at Dale, who continued walking. Not a great sign. If the surprise were dangerous, Dale would not want him running ahead. On the top of the rise, Seth halted, staring down at a gentle slope on the far side. Not 100 yards away, a large creature was wading through the hayfield, wielding a pair of gigantic skates. The hulking figure slashed down wide swaths of alfalfa at a relentless pace. Both scythes hissed and chimed without pause. Dale joined Seth at the top of the rise. "What is it?" Seth asked. "That's our loom, Hugo. Come see." Dale left the cart track and started across the field towards the toiling Goliath. "What's a loom?" Seth asked, trailing after him. "Watch." Dale raised his voice. "Hugo, halt!" The scathe stopped cutting in mid-stroke. "Hugo, come!" The Herculean mower turned and jogged towards them with long, loping strides. Seth could feel the ground vibrate as Hugo approached. Still clutching the scythes, the massive gloam came to a halt in front of Dale, looming over him. "He's made of dirt?" Seth asked. "Soil, clay, and stone," Dale said. Granted the semblance of life by a powerful enchanter. Hugo was donated to this preserve a couple 100 years ago. "How tall is he?" "Over 9 feet when he stands up straight. Mostly he slouches closer to 8. Seth gawked at the behemoth. In form he looked more ape-like than human. Aside from his impressive height, Hugo was broad, with thick limbs and a disproportionately large hands and feet. Tufts of grass and the occasional dandelion sprouted from his earthly body. He had an oblong head with a square jaw. Crude features resembled a nose, mouth, and ears. The eyes were a part of vacant hollows beneath the jutted brow. "Can he talk?" "No, he tries to sing." "Hugo, sing us a song." The wide mouth began to open and close, and out rumbled a series of gravelly roars, some long, some short, none of them bearing a resemblance to music. Hugo cocked his head back and forth as if swaying to the melody. Seth tried to stifle his laughter. "Hugo, stop singing." The gloam fell silent. "He isn't very good," Seth said. "About as musical as a landslide." "Does it embarrass him?" "He doesn't think like we do. Doesn't get happy or sad or angry or bored. He's like a robot. Hugo just obeys commands." "Can I tell him to do stuff?" "If I order him to obey you," Dale said. "Otherwise he just listens to me, Lena, or your grandparents." "What else can he do?" "He understands a lot. He performs all sorts of manual labor. It would take quite a team to match all of the work he does around here. Hugo never sleeps. If you leave him with a list of chores, he'll labor through the night. I want to tell him to do something." "Hugo, put down the scythes," said Dale. The gloam set the scythes on the ground. "Hugo, this is Seth. Hugo will obey Seth's next command." "Now?" Seth asked. "Say his name first, so he knows you're addressing him. Hugo, do a cartwheel." Hugo held out his palms and shrugged. "He doesn't know what you mean," Dale said. "Can you do a cartwheel?" "Yeah." "Hugo, Seth is going to show you a cartwheel." Seth put his hands up and lunged sideways and did a cartwheel with sloppy form. "Hugo," Dale said, "obey Seth's next command. Hugo, do a cartwheel." The gloam raised his arms, lurched to the side, and completed an awkward cartwheel. The ground trembled. "Pretty good for a first try," Seth said. He duplicated yours. "Hugo, when you do a cartwheel, keep your body straighter and aligned on a single plane, like a wheel turning. Hugo, do a cartwheel." This time Hugo executed a nearly perfect cartwheel. His hand left prints in the field. "He learns fast," Seth exclaimed. "Anything physical, leastways." Dale put his hands on his hip. "I'm sick of walking. What do you say we let Hugo take us to our next stop?" "Really?" "If you'd rather walk, we can always." "No way." Kendra used the hacksaw to separate another pumpkin from the vine. Further down a long trough of soil, Lena was cutting a large red one. Nearly half the greenhouse was devoted to pumpkins, big and small, white, yellow, orange, red, green. They had arrived at the greenhouse by a faint trail through the woods. Aside from the pumpkins and the plants, the grass structure contained a generator to power the lights and the climate control. We really have to cut 300? Kendra asked. Just be glad you don't have to load them, Lena said. Who does? It's a surprise. Are jack-o'-lanterns really such a big deal? Do they work? Quite well, especially if we can convince fairies to fill them with magic, to dwell in them for the night. Lena explained. Fairy lanterns have long been among the surest protection from creatures with dubious intentions. But I thought the house was already safe. Kendra began, sawing the stem of a tall orange pumpkin. Redundancies in security are wise on festival nights, particularly on Midsummer Eve, after all of the recent commotion. How will we ever carve all of them before tonight? Leave that to Dale. He could carve them all himself with time to spare. Not always the most artful renderings, but the man can mass produce. You carve only for fun. He knows how to carve for need. I've never liked pulling out the guts, Kendra said. Really? Lena said, I love the slimy texture, getting greasy up to my elbows, like playing in the mud. Well, have delicious pies afterwards. Is this white one too small? Maybe save it for autumn. Do you think the fairies will come? Hard to say, Lena admitted. Some, for sure. Normally we have no trouble filling as many lanterns as we care to carve, but tonight might be an exception. What if they don't show up? Kendra asked. We'll be fine. Artificially lighting works, just not as well as fairies. With the fairy lanterns, the commotion stays farther from the house. In addition, Stan will be putting out tribal masks, herbs, and other safeguards. Is the night really so awful? You'll hear plenty of disturbing sounds. Maybe we should have skipped the milk this morning. Lena shook her head, not lifting her eyes from the work. Some of the most insidious tricks employed tonight will involve artifice and illusion. Without the milk, you could be even more susceptible. It would only broaden their ability to mask their true appearance. Kendra severed another pumpkin. Either way, I won't be looking. I wish we could transplant some of your common sense into your brother. After all that's happened, I'm sure he'll behave tonight. The door to the greenhouse opened, and Dale poked his head in. Kendra, come here. I want you to meet someone. Kendra walked to the door, and Lena behind her. In the doorway, Kendra paused and let out a small shriek. A bulky creature with a simian built was marching towards the greenhouse, pulling a rickshaw-type contraption the size of a wagon. What is it? He's Hugo, Seth crowed from inside the handcart. He's a robot made of dirt. He jumped out of the cart and ran over to Kendra. I ran ahead so you could see him approach, Dale said. Hugo can run really fast when you tell him to. Seth gushed. Dale let me give him orders and he obeyed everything I said. See? He's waiting for instructions. Hugo stood motionless behind the greenhouse, still holding the rickshaw. Had she not just seen Hugo moving, Kendra would have assumed he was a crude statue. Seth shouldered past Kendra into the greenhouse. What is he? Kendra asked Lena. A gloom, she replied. Animated matter granted rudimentary intelligence. He does most of the heavy labor around here. He's loading the pumpkins and rolling them into the house in his cart. Seth exited the greenhouse toting a fairly large pumpkin. Can I show her a command, Seth? Can I show her a command? He asked. Sure, said Dale. Hugo obeyed the next command from Seth. Holding the pumpkin at his waist and both hands leaning back a bit to stay balanced, Seth approached the gloam. Hugo, take this pumpkin and throw it as far as you can into the woods. The inert gloam sprang to life, grasping the pumpkin in one massive hand. He twisted and then fiercely uncoiled, hurling the pumpkin into the sky like a discus. Dale whistled softly as the pumpkin shrank into the distance, finally dropping out of sight. The orange speck vanished behind far-off treetops. "Did you see that?" Seth cried. "He's better than a water balloon launcher." "Regular catapult," Dale murmured. "Very impressive," Lena agreed dryly. "Forgive me if I hope to put a few of our pumpkins to more practical use. You boys can help us cut the rest of the harvest so you can load them." "Can't Hugo do a few more tricks?" Seth begged. "He knows cartwheels." There will be a time for nonsense later," Lena assured him. "We need to finish our preparations for this evening."